Hi everyone, I'm Devika. I'm from Singapore Association for Mental Health. I'll be talking about the topic of introduction to art therapy and how you can incorporate some of these habits and de-stress with the process of mark making also. But first, let me introduce to you what SAMH is all about. Yeah. So we were founded in 1968 and we are a social service agency that is funded by various organizations such as the MOH, MSF, NCSS, various fundings and donations, as well as through talks and workshops. So Terence and I are from the Creative Hub, which is part of the creative services that we offer. So all of our services are under the creative therapeutic interventions. So we have clinical, which is where I come from. I'm an art therapist, so I provide art therapy services under that. We also offer mentoring and service learning opportunities, which are in the form of community collaborations and peer-led art activities. So we have volunteers and so forth coming down to our center to conduct sessions, as well as workshops for our beneficiaries. We also offer expressive arts and sports activities, which could be in the form of visual arts, using poetry, writing, expressive arts, or other forms of drama, floorball, or sailing also. So for today's coverage, we'll be covering about how slowing down and why it is important. In Singapore, we often lead a fast-paced life, so we have to take consideration of our own mental health and just slow down and take pace in that scenario. So how we can use some art elements to actually take part in that also will be shared. So we will be providing you an overview of introduction to art therapy and how certain elements like mark making could be practiced at home also. So in Singapore, we often lead a fast-paced life and we strive to get ahead of each other, and in the process, we forget to appreciate what is around us. So if we find that we are juggling with a lot of different things, a lot of different plates that we have taken on board, a lot of responsibilities, so we don't know what we can do with it. It may be the perfect time to actually take it down a notch and just back off from all these different scenarios, from accumulating and consuming your overall life. So we want to strive to make a bit more of a meaning and purpose and enjoy the simple pleasures in your life also. So how is this possible? We are always disconnected from the world in that sense, because we are often trying to achieve different goals and trying to get ahead of each other from there also. So when this takes over our schedules and we have to give in to all these demands, we'll start working longer hours and not care about our own mental health from there. So it can often lead to a lot of mental illnesses, such as depression, anxiety, or a sense of feeling of emptiness from there. But there are ways where you can actually just slow down, be a bit more aware of what's happening around you, be a part of that intentional living, and just strive to have an overall well-being from there. So why is slowing down important? It can actually enhance our own wellness and health overall. We often lead like a fast-paced life, so it can lead to increased levels of stress, which can cause a lot of mental illnesses like anxiety or depression, but it could also cause a lot of biological aspects, which is increased in blood pressure, heart rate, and so forth. So actually slowing down in that process could encourage us to focus, unwind, be aware of what's happening around us, but then at the same time focus on a specific task, so that we are just in the moment and just having a little bit of a time for ourselves also from there. So often enough, whenever we have these sort of strategies or ways when these things get overwhelming for all of us, we'll rely on some coping strategies such as meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, where we tend to slow down and just be in that process also. Some of you may encourage and take part in exercising, but that may not be suitable for all of us also. Or some may just take some time to set aside and just organize what they are planning to do in the entire day also. There are other strategies like journaling, or going for talk therapies or other forms of psychotherapy, as well as counseling. These are just overall generic strategies. since I come from like the art therapist background, I want to share a little bit about how art making can actually encourage us to slow down from there also. So when we are slowing down and engaging in the art making process, it is actually like a form of meditation. So it focuses and allows us to just slow down and just focus on the art making process and the details. So like if someone is feeling very anxious, they may take part in drawing repetitive patterns and just focus on that pattern making so that it allows us to block out all the distractions around us and just be present with that process there. So it helps to reduce any sort of anxiety and just be engaged in that process also. Yeah. So this brings us to why art therapy is important, or what is it all about. So we'll be providing you with an introduction to art therapy. So there are various other organizations like American Art Therapy Association and Jakarta, Art Therapy Association Singapore, as well as British Art Therapy Organization. So these are governing bodies that are involved in just taking the practice of art therapists all across. And they also have different definitions of how art therapy is used, or what is the overall umbrella term for there also. So what is art therapy? Art therapy is a form of psychotherapy. It's a form of creative expression and communication, but it also involves a therapeutic relationship between the client and the therapist, and also has the third element of the client, the artwork, and the therapist also. So we'll be going into this a little bit more as we go forward. So coming to this whole overall definition, art therapy involves the usage of creative techniques such as drawing, painting, collage, and other techniques as a way to express oneself, and perhaps work on certain goals to communicate or build on self-esteem and improve overall quality of life from there. So like I had mentioned, it's like a three-way process and a dance. So we will always have like a client coming in and working with the therapist as well as the artwork. So whatever they are going through, they may be transferring it on like emotions and so forth onto the artwork, where the therapist would ask questions about the artwork and just try to facilitate a deeper understanding from there also. So it's a form of psychotherapy which includes both the art making process, the talking, as well as the relationship between the therapist and the client from there. So there are two different scenarios or two different elements in this, which is the art making process and the artwork, as well as the theoretical relationships and therapeutic aspects from there. So the art making process includes like how you create, what you create with, the symbols and metaphors or the interactions with the art materials, and how you relate to artwork also. So if perhaps you're coming in with a lot of anxiety, so you may use a material like sketch pens as a way to just gain that sense of control and try to engage in that repetitive pattern making just to soothe yourself a bit more and just focus on that repetition from there and just enjoy that whole process. So sometimes they may incorporate like some sort of symbols and metaphors in the artwork also. So if they have a family background that they want to explore a bit more, they may represent it through different symbols, like using animals to represent the different family members and just associating different qualities for that also. So then once that process has taken place, we will link it back to some sort of theoretical aspects. So it could be because of attachment concerns, like they don't have a stable childhood, or they have traumatic trauma that they have experienced during that childhood aspect, or they have poor coping mechanisms. So through the process, they'll learn these different scenarios and try to enhance their overall wellness and well-being from there. So we also have like the unconscious aspect, which we are not so aware of what's going on in our mind, which may be actually projected onto the artwork. So once that is done, then the client and the therapist may work together to actually process it and try to make meaning of what has happened from there also. So like I said, our mind actually is made up of 90% of things that are on the unconscious level, and 10% is actually our conscious thoughts and perceptions. So we may not be aware of certain memories, certain life experiences, or our own fears and like selfish motives that we are not able to verbalize. So through the art making process, actually, that unconscious material may come to the conscious and then we'll start processing it together as a three-way process from there. So what is not art therapy? There's a lot of different look-alikes and myths and misconceptions from it. We may look alike on the surface, but then we're actually not the same. So we have art education, art as therapy, and art activities. So this is not what art therapy is all about. Art therapy is the process of actually understanding between the product as well as the entire process of the art making process there. Whereas an art lesson focuses on the product and the end product. So we'll always focus on the aesthetic and the technical aspect, but then in art therapy, we'll focus on the clinical. So as we engage in the process, what comes up and what is brought forward from there. So in an art lesson, the goal is of art making and learning about different technical skills, as well as creating pleasing artworks. Whereas in art therapy, the goal is not of art, like how the end product looks like, but it's also like the expression of emotions, of any sort of psychological or social issues that come forward through the art making process. In art lessons, teaching or the end product of how the moderator will try to showcase different techniques, like, okay, if there's a perfect balance, if there's perfect symmetry in the artwork, that is what's taught. Whereas in art therapy, there will be some teaching elements like coping mechanisms, but that won't be the primary focus. It's the focus of what is brought up in the art making, as well as what symbols and metaphors are processed, as well as what's brought up in the therapeutic interaction between the client and therapist from there. But the overall aim is to enhance one's sense of wellness and well-being from there. So there are differences between an art teacher as well as an art therapist. So an art teacher would teach the different skills. It involves like a student-teacher relationship, and the main goal is to teach and impart skills to make something at the end. So it always focuses on the end product. Whereas an art therapist is actually a licensed and trained art therapist, which are governed by all these bodies that I had mentioned earlier. And the aim is actually to build a therapeutic relationship. So it's the relationship between the client, the therapist, and the artwork, and ensures that there's a safe environment created in that scenario so that there's a proper expression of any sort of emotions or any sort of psychological concerns that the client may have. So we'll use the artwork as a way of talking and try to see it as a reflection or an extension of the art of the client and as a form of communication from there also. So art therapy actually includes both non-directive and directive interventions. It has, in the sense like, okay, if a client comes in and they want to face, they're experiencing a lot of anxiety. So that may be the directive provided by the therapist to focus, okay, let's create something that would help them to soothe that anxiety. Whereas non-directive would be, oh, okay, I don't know what to do in a session. So the client and the therapist may just work together to create an artwork and see what is brought up in that whole session. If there's some sort of unconscious material that the client is feeling very anxious about or is not so sure of, that's what they will share from there also. We also have group art therapy, where the entire group gathers together and tries to have an overall theme or motive to work towards and explore also. We also have individual art therapy, where a client and therapist work individually in a session to process different parts of trauma or experiences that that individual has experienced. In an open studio, it has like different drop-ins. So clients may just drop in whenever they feel like, and an art therapist is present in that scenario to facilitate that whole interaction and like explore a certain theme from there also. So we have art experientials, where there's an overall arching theme. So perhaps like they want to explore about New Year resolutions. So that may be an overall directive that is provided, but it's one-off, and it's a mixed group that comes together to share and like create an artwork. With the art therapist present there, they'll be able to facilitate an interaction or discussion about the art making process from there also. So learning about how these different scenarios are there, I'm going to be passing over my time to Mr. Terence, who's going to be sharing with you a little bit about the process that could be incorporated and how you can try to learn some techniques to just take away and practice at home from there also.
So press
the green.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Terence. I'm from SAMH. I'm the program specialist. Today I would like to share with you some of the my personal journey from a former art educator to now is a mental health practitioner. All right. So it's my personal journey. All right. So for the mark making, so today's objective is very simple. I will share with you how do we use this art activity to calm yourself down, and when you feel intense or sometimes you feel stressed. So also take time to unwind yourself. Take art as a medium instead, like just now David Carty mentioned, as art is a subject, or you can use art to focus on certain emotion. All right. Okay. So why art? I would like to share with you my personal experiences. For me to articulate myself through verbally, it's not so easy as my upbringing and also my professional as an art teacher. So by using art, you usually as a very comfortable way, method for me to communicate with people. And that, it brings up like why we choose arts. Okay. When we have this buffer as art as a medium, and when we talk about your emotion, personally I feel it's much easier, okay, than what we can do to talk to people or to share with your feeling directly, verbally. All right. So that will be the good method that we can do. All right. Okay. So I will share with you a very two simple steps that we can do. Number one is by using the highlighter, we create the basic shapes, and we use a pen that we can use. You can just easily take from the office. Okay. All right. So those are the simple steps. I will do a demonstration after my presentation. All right. By using the highlighter, you create the simple shapes. Okay. Right? You can choose any color that you like to express yourself. Okay. And next step we are going to do is by creating repeated patterns, lines, simple, the patterns, and easy to create the outcome. And most important, actually, I feel that why I choose this particular activity is that you are able to get the material from the office or anytime, anyway. Yeah. The importance is that sometimes we have this anxiety during the meeting or certain situation that you face. You couldn't excuse yourself, say, oh, I want to go for yoga or have a meditating process. And by taking the easy material that you are able to cope at the present moment, so therefore, they will choose this simple activity and material that will easy to access. Okay. All right. So by creating the sum of patterns, the lines, okay, and do some marks. All right. So therefore, there's a sum of the outcome. Okay. So through the activity, I would like to focus because we focus on the process. So you can think about the three questions. What do you like about what you did? Does your artwork express yourself? Before and after the activity, do you notice any difference in you? So those are the questions you can ask yourself. So following, I will do some demonstration. Yeah. Okay. So those are the material. Okay. You are easy to access like pen or highlighters or even the markers. Right. So firstly, I will choose the color that maybe I would like to use, like for instance, the purple color, okay, by a simple process, okay. Take note about the way how you manage the material. Okay. And maybe I can choose the different colors. Okay. And pay a little bit attention. Your hand gesture. Okay, so the next step, you can just simply draw a few lines. Okay. And maybe I want to add some dots. Okay. Okay. Right. You can create more detail. Focus on process that while you're creating the patterns. Okay, right. Okay. So by those simple steps, maybe it works for someone. You might feel you don't feel that anxious. Okay, through this process by creating the repeated patterns. Yeah, I hope this process actually helped you, and this is one of it. So you if you want to find out more, you can always approach us.
All right, so thank you so much, Devika, as well as Terence, for sharing with us so much about how art therapy can help to elevate one's mood and also express our emotions without words. And right now, we're going to take a look at the questions that started pouring in during this session. So let's take this question. It says that, is it true that when we draw, the colors can tell a lot about our current mental well-being? That's a very good question. Maybe one of you would like to share with us?
Okay, I can share.
Yeah, David.
I mean, it depends on the person to person. So sometimes, okay, if the client comes in and they're feeling very angry, so they may represent it, for them, the meaning is that they're representing it through the color of red, perhaps. So because they're very angry and they just don't know how to like express that. But it may not be the case for everyone. So red may symbolize something different for each person, maybe like a symbol of love, perhaps. So you have to work with the client in that scenario and understand what they're trying to express through that process also. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And maybe the next question, does coloring book help when it comes to art therapy?
It depends. Like, I guess it's also how on person to person. So I generally draw a lot of mandalas as a way to just relax myself and just break free from the stress. So if it works out for you, just using that coloring book, you can just do it, but you have to understand that that's different from art therapy. It's more of using art as a form of therapy rather than art therapy, where we actually go in depth and try to explore a lot more about the person in itself.
Thank you for sharing with us. And also from Bunny20, this person has a question, says like, what's the recommended duration for creating art?
Okay. Okay, maybe I can answer the question.
Yeah.
I think it depends. Sometimes, for my personal experience, when I doing that meeting, okay, if I'm anxious, okay, or I don't know how to cope the situation, that 5 minutes might work. I can just do doodling, it helps me. But somehow some people, they need longer time to process the emotion and the feelings. So I would say it depends on individual. Yeah, so there's no definite answer how long it works. It really depends by the situation and the personal experience as well.
Okay, so I think so the next question is, can I do art therapy online, like using painting tools to draw? You can, but then the difference between like art therapy and art as therapy is that there's a presence of an art therapist in that scenario also. So it's actually facilitated by a relevant professional in that way. So you can use the paint tool as a way to just like step away from a stressful situation and just relax, but then that would not be equivalent to art therapy in that way. So I think so the next question also, how do we know which art therapy is good for different individuals? I guess you have to try it out and go into that whole process before actually seeing if it's the right fit for that individual in itself. So sometimes people may prefer talk therapy over using art as a way of therapy instead. So you have to try those different scenarios and see what works out and what's the perfect fit for that person in that way.
Okay, next up, we have a question from Silan Ko. Yes, he or she is asking us like, please share more about applying art therapy in our daily lives. For example, art journaling. Wow, this person seems to know more about this.
Do you want to
So instead of writing a diary, we could write a art journal, right?
Okay, firstly, I think we need to differentiate what is art therapy and art therapeutic experience. So art therapy actually is just like, will be certified art therapy conduct the section. So art therapeutic experience, you are able to do it by your own, or you can join the different art sections. Creating the journal, I think it works for certain people. Okay. So some people like to write, some people like to draw. For myself, I prefer in terms of the visual form. I will doodle, I will draw, and will document what I feel and what I express the particular present moment. Yeah, so I would say it works. Yeah, okay. maybe the art
Devika?
therapy.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so from a different scenario, art journaling is something like in an art therapy like session. So there's a lot of things that are processed between the client and the therapist. So as a way to our own self-reflect, the art therapist would actually go back and journal and try to reflect it, like whatever emotions that they have experienced or like absorbed in that scenario, in the form of art making in their own journal in itself. So it's their way of letting go of whatever is being absorbed in them, as a way to just express themselves and just understand perhaps what's like emotions were brought forward from there also.
Yeah, excellent sharing. And also, of course, I know that art is always a very therapeutic way of expressing ourselves, especially sometimes you find it really hard to talk to your friends, your relatives about the problems that you're facing, but just doodling and just coloring a bit, it brings colors to your life. So you may want to try it. And the next question that we have, let's take a look. So what does it take to be a certified therapist, art therapist? And do name specific institutions in Singapore that can offer certified courses. How long does it take to be certified? Any prerequisites?
Okay, so it's actually a master's level course. So I'm certified by a master's in art therapy, which I have done from LaSalle here in Singapore, which is the only college that offers it in Singapore here. So it's a 2-year program, and it's about like actually experiencing that whole scenario and going through different modules and so forth. So some prerequisites, you do definitely need like a portfolio as well as some form of work experience, and you'll need to go through the interview process. For more details, you can always like go to the website there and just check it out from there.
So how long did you take to complete the entire course?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, great. It takes a while. You need to be like really certified to be one. Right. And how about you, Terence?
Okay, I'm not a therapist, so I'm more like art educator.
Would you want to consider doing that?
Well, this part of my consideration.
Consideration, right?
Yes.
Okay. It takes time to attain that. Okay. So if you're watching our live stream and you find that, hey, this is a course that I want to take, well, we have just shared with you the information. It takes about 2 years. So slowly, and you'll be able to complete a course, and we hope to see you in this arena very soon. Okay. Yes. And also, please share with us more about applying art therapy in our daily lives. Oh, sorry, this one had already been done. So then I think this person has asked a few times. Okay, so I hope you answer your questions. Next, let's move on to by Baymax. Baymax asks a question: any memorable moments being at art therapy So hope to hear from both of you. Both of you are going to share with us.
Okay, perhaps like seeing that client actually express themselves or what they have experienced in that scenario as a way, like, okay, if they have a past negative experience and seeing that come up in the session and you being able to process it with them is something quite memorable, because they actually try to accept what's happened and try to move on for a better future in that scenario. So,
is there a particular incident whereby it has personally just touched you?
I think like I had clients who were not so open to like verbalizing or sharing a lot of thoughts or so forth. So it was a bit difficult for me to develop like a rapport. So I tried to use like art as a way for them to just express, and actually they started opening up and they started becoming a bit more comfortable from there also.
And some that became friends eventually.
I mean, like we do have that boundaries that we have to maintain because we are ultimately professionals in that scenario. But then definitely like they open up and they are a bit more confident and comfortable to share a lot more about their experiences.
Yeah, that's really positive to hear that. And what about you, Terence? Any memorable moments?
Okay, so because I facilitate art therapeutic section. So for me, the memorable moment is that was a former art educator. For me, the art is actually more like subject. So I look into the art per se. It's more like aesthetic or historical per se. It's the first time actually that I experienced when I conducting the section. One of participants actually through the art making she cried. I was shocked, and I don't know how to describe the experience, because that's very interesting and very different when I conduct an art section. But through the art therapeutic section, I realized the participants are able to express themselves emotionally, freely. And what they can do is, I think we provide the space for them to freely express themselves. Therefore, they feel safe to express themselves. So that's a moment I feel, oh, the art is not only a subject, and I have to change my mind. And the art actually provides much more. It's a medium, actually, it allowed the people and participants to really find themselves in this safe space. So that's a particular moment I feel that motivated me and actually inspired me to carry on.
That's a very positive message. And of course, for those of you who are watching us live right now, do remember to keep your questions coming through, because right now, of course, we have the time to answer each and every one of your questions. We still have about another 50 more minutes. So go ahead and scan the QR code and use the Q&A and the poll features so that we can see your questions. At the bottom of the video, if you're using the mobile phone version, that's where you can also fire away your questions. Okay, we still have a good 15 minutes to go. And here we have with us Devika as well as Terence. They are from the Singapore Association for Mental Health. Now, back to the questions, right? Is it true that as we draw, the colors can also... The next question, I think this has been repeated again, okay? So a lot of people has been repeating the questions. Next one, it's... does coloring book helps when it comes to art therapy? There's a lot of coloring books that were sold out there, right?
So, I mean, like, it's a process and it's up to the person to use. So this is where art as therapy comes from, rather than art therapy. So engaging in that coloring process may be like calming for that person.
It's very calming, right?
Yeah.
So there's many versions, right? We have the coloring book versions, and we also have now on iPad, you have that version as well, right?
Yeah.
So you can really doodle and color anywhere, anytime, literally.
Correct.
So it does help to elevate the mood a bit.
But yeah, you have to understand that's different from like art psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So
Because there's nobody guiding you.
there's no one, and it's about like just being in the process rather than going in depth about what the client's gone through and so forth from there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so our next question, let's take a look at what our viewers have fired away for their questions. Next one is, I'm not a very creative person, so would art therapy still work for me?
Yes, art therapy could be experienced by anyone. So if you feel like you're actually going through something and you just want to like speak about it or use art as a way of expression or just have someone to process it with you, so the art therapist will actually guide you in like some materials and have that knowledge base so that it makes it a bit more comfortable for that person in itself. So if a person feels that, okay, they're not good at drawing, they can use different materials like maybe perhaps collage as a way for expressing themselves, which is a bit more easier to experience through that process also. Yeah.
Great. And also, we keep talking about art therapy, right? So I'm also curious, just as this viewer is curious. Now, this viewer was asking us, like, how much does art therapy cost in Singapore?
It's about $40,000 to $50,000 for the 2-year program at least. So I'm not so sure if that has changed. You can always check out the website.
That's for taking out the cost itself. And what about if, let's say, they want to speak to you guys and take out?
At our center, it's $80 for an hour, like the session. So they can come in, they can write into us and see if they want to actually meet a professional therapist and explore, and then we'll take it on from there. Yeah.
So it's more like a discovery first before they decide to do further engagement, whether they want to go for 1 session, 2 sessions, or even longer.
Yes. Each person to their own. Each person may have a different number of sessions that they would require. So it's between the therapist and the client to work together to see.
So there's about $80.
Yes, per session.
Per session.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right, it's really affordable, right? So I think we should take time to really pay attention to our mental health. It's especially very important. In fact, I think it's at the top of mind for a lot of Singaporeans, especially during the pandemic. So it's it's okay to say that you're not okay and seek help. Okay, so next question that we have, what are the main benefits of arts, especially in the digitalized era?
I think maybe Terence can
Yes,
answer that.
Terence.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
Main benefits.
The main benefits.
Okay, so we are talking about now as a mental health practitioner. I would say when you are, okay, this is very interesting things actually. Maybe I prefer in sharing maybe my personal experience.
Yes.
Okay, while there's one particular section I conduct with a youth, and through the process I did share with the youth about what's my experience, and maybe then because it's communication and also the conversation. So response from the youth, they did mention about how do they engage in a particular game, and I realized that the game itself is very similar. The game character is very similar to the particular youth. It's more like that character is represent the participant, and I realized actually the participant couldn't really like express in terms of how she feel, and through the game itself actually that. So what I do is I ask her, can you draw the character and maybe share with me how's the character like, and express through the art form. And I realized through the process of the art making, she able to resonate certain things she didn't aware about that, and that's it herself. So through the process, that's the intake about herself. I didn't do anything. In fact, I only asked her to just create an artwork about the character, and she shared with me. So I realized actually the art itself, actually I still can collaborate with the digital. Maybe it's a game, or maybe it's something they use a traditional way, or they use the digital way, use iPad to create art. I feel the process is important than whether it's a digital or traditional art medium.
So I guess that the medium that we speak to, we're talking about, could be vast. It could be digital, it could be just paper, colors and all. But the medium is just like a tool. However, the process of going through the medium is important because it's about self-discovery in this manner, right?
Yeah,
so
it could be the particular
that's right. So like even digitalized era right now, if you are doing this character in a gaming world, which everyone's just love gaming, right? So they could also relate to this digital part of it, yet releasing an inner part of them that they have not aware of. Yeah, this is a very good way of discovering. Thanks for sharing with us. And what about you, David? Because it seems like you got something to share with us.
It's like how Terence mentioned. So nowadays, with a lot of digital aspects coming through, there's a lot of different avatars or like NFTs and so forth that the clients may use, or like individuals may use as a way for expression.
Yep.
So like Terence also mentioned, there's no right or wrong, and each person to their own, and using that like form of medium or form of expression is just the way for them to share about themselves.
Yeah, also. That's an excellent tool actually.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing. You see, when we talk about art therapy, somehow, maybe most of us, including me, will think that it's just really just restricted to just paper, colors and all, this kind of medium. But however, in this digital age, we have already advanced, okay? So folks, now, art therapy involves that as well. So if it's something that you might want to consider to take up, so you can always speak to any one of us at the Singapore Association for Mental Health. Okay, so next question that we have is, do you think that schools could bring in art therapy to aid students in unwinding their stress from academics?
Okay, so it could be in the form of like individual sessions, as well as like having an entire class to like an art.
Have you guys been doing that?
I think so. We have done something like that in the past. So we've had like an entire class experience and art experiential, as I had mentioned earlier. So it's just a way for them to like experience that whole process and see how art making could be incorporated also. But it could also be used in an individual setting. So if the student is suppose going through some sort of stress or is not doing so well from home or anything like that, they can always like seek this in the school in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think we should see more in school. Okay, you hear us. Okay, next question is, besides the mark making, so what other art forms are used for art therapy? Terence?
Okay, so I just want to maybe share, emphasize one more time that the art therapy and art experiential section is a little bit different. So besides art making, actually, not only the visual art, we do believe in any art form, like for instance, dance, or even creative writing, or even through music. Yeah. So our center even we incorporate with the different art modalities. It can be dance with the drawing, and it can be music with painting. So it works. I want to mention is that if we talk about art therapy, that must be facilitated by the certified art therapists. So what we do is that we will provide art experiential. We also will design the program to suit the different audience that we can provide effective kind of the art experience. Yeah. So yeah, any art form actually would do not only the drawing and painting or just a map making. There are various.
Yeah, there is various forms. Okay, thank you for the sharing. Next, we have a question that garners a lot of votes. They say that if someone loves to draw using black colors, so what does it tell you about the person's mood? Is it happy or calm? Maybe both of you share with us.
Okay, I will not read the artwork in itself. Like, I think so it's going through that whole process of the client expressing themselves. Okay, if they come in with a lot of, you can perhaps, like the therapist in itself can sense that something is wrong.
The vibes.
The vibe from the client in itself, and then see how that is brought up in the art making, and then actually facilitate a discussion about it from the client perspective also, to go in depth and see what the client is going through. So we won't exactly read the artwork. We would try to understand the whole entire process and the whole session from there also.
But is it true that if they use a certain choice of colors, like the more somber, more dialed, dark colors, that could mean that they are in a darker side of the reality right now?
I mean, again, like I say, it's person to person. So sometimes black color may be very therapeutic for the person, but then for other person it may be very sad. So it really you have to work with the client to see what they.
Yeah, differs, right?
Yes.
Okay, our next question that garners quite a number of votes is there a local community out there that I can keep a lookout or join in relation to art therapy?
Okay, there is Art Therapy Association Singapore here. So that's actually a community of art therapists that engages and creates a lot of different events and so forth also. So you can go down to their website to check it out a bit more from there.
Okay, just Google. Google is the best friend. Okay, so our next question, because we have a lot of questions coming in. Let's do this a bit faster because we are left with the last 5 minutes to go. Can I practice art therapy as a group? Like I just, go with my friends, like a groupie thing?
Okay, so like our center, we offer two different scenarios. I think so one side, Terence can explain a bit more. I can explain from like a group art therapy session. So like we run support groups using art as a form of expression or art therapy. So they may come in with a theme that they want to explore over a course of perhaps 6 sessions. And then through each session, the art therapist is present and we'll try to build up on that and see what is brought up in the session and process it together. That's a group art therapy. But then there is art experiential or programs which I think so Terence can share a bit more about.
Anything to add,
so
Terence?
for if you want to invite a family or group or even couple, maybe you can think about the art experiential or art therapeutic sections. So we have a different objective with a different team that provide target to a different audience. So we do have the family section as well, and we do have the colleagues, or they might from church or they're from the same office then come to join as a group for the particular art experiential sections. Yeah, so I do believe that helps because from the feedback and I see the response from the participants, that's how I feel it works for the group as well. Yeah, individual maybe like some form of the therapeutic part. Yeah.
For individual art therapy?
Yeah, for the individual art therapy.
So they may, a client may suppose come in that they want to explore about their family background or a bit more about what they have experienced in the past. So that's an individual session where the therapist and the client work together to process and go deeper into what it has experienced. Yeah.
Thanks. And then next question is, of course, like, does Singapore Association for Mental Health has got any recommended art therapist that I can go for, like we can go for?
All of them.
We all are the recommended ones.
I think
that's very politic.
I think
diplomatic. Yeah.
I think so. All of them are recommended. Right. What you can do if you feel that you need some support or need some guidance or just need someone to share or talk about your own experiences, you can always drop us an email, and then one of our relevant art therapists will reach out to you, or one of our other team members will reach out to you from there. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing with us all these wonderful answers to the questions. Actually, there are more questions, rather, they keep on coming in like snowballing in. But in the essence of time, I hope that we have already applied and given you all the answers for the questions that is at the top of your mind. And of course, if you do have any more questions, you can always approach any of our therapists or even go to the hotline for the Singapore Association for Mental Health.